So our next and final presenter of the evening is Sarah Yam. So she wrote a chapter on More Eyes on Crime, the Rhetoric of Mediated Mugshots. She will soon go be with you as well presenting this, but I will quickly introduce her. So Sarah is a Marie Skłodowska career leading fellow postdoc at Erasmus University in Rotterdam. She researches surveillance, technical communication, information, and rhetoric, especially in the law enforcement and investigation context. She previously worked as a lecturer at the School of Information at the University of Arizona and has spent over 11 years contracted as an investigator for the US government. Sarah will also be starting quite soon a new project dealing with surveillance and the security of content networks. So Sarah, I think you're also right there. Sorry, I have like small images of all of you, so I just want to make sure. So yeah, if you are there, it's all yours. Thank you. Yeah, I can see you now. Good.
Okay. All right, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here with everyone. Kind of like everyone has said, I'm excited to be able to talk about this chapter. So I'll just kind of give you a brief overview of what the chapter was, or in the conclusions I kind of came to and what led me to those conclusions tonight. So the idea is More Eyes on Crime, the Rhetoric of Mediated Mugshots, and it's based on the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office former site of the mugshot of the day. And here's kind of like a sketch. I didn't want to be too open about what it actually looked like and further address the individuals that were in the photos, but you can see that at the top they have a picture of the sheriff, and then in the middle kind of area there's the winner, so to speak, of the mugshot of the day, and then you can kind of search through different crimes, and then there's the other like runners up of the day. So basically this idea is that the sheriff's office posts mugshots of anyone that's has been arrested, and leaves them up on the site for 3 days. This ran from 2011 to 2015. So or 16, I think. The current site still has the mugshots, but it's not a game, so to speak, where you can vote on individuals that have been arrested. So that's the site, and basically the Sheriff Joe is the individual that kind of made this program. He wanted to tout himself as kind of the America's toughest sheriff. And he also had a lot of other programs in the mid 2010s where he made people that were arrested live in tents in the desert. It's in Phoenix, Arizona, which is a desert city. Had these chain gangs. He boasted of like a 10-cent bologna sandwich to feed the people that were in jail, made them wear pink underwear, as if that was something bad. Had these jail cams where they would kind of do a cam of people getting arrested or booked into the jail. So so it's part of this larger phenomenon of posting social or mugshots onto social media pages, but Sheriff Joe kind of used it as something that to show how tough he was, and he justified the posting and then the contest to see whose mugshot would, I guess, rise to the top under the guise of, more eyes on arrestees may result in more leads to criminal investigators. So, but I wondered, is this really what's going on here? What is the rhetoric of this the site? What are we encouraged to do to identify more criminals? And to do that, it was kind of hard because it's an anonymous site where you can't tell, go back and ask why did you vote and why, or why are you interacting with the site? So I tried to do kind of an object and views analysis of the website where I looked at the function, like what is the site allowing you to do, and kind of what actions is it encouraging? You would think that if it was encouraging more eyes on crime, it might expect the site would help evaluate crime in some way, or like facilitate some reporting procedure. And then I also looked at assessment of the photo samples. So not only kind of like what was the site encouraging to do, but who are the people that were being picked. You might expect those featured might represent a larger threat to society or something like that if you were trying to look at more leads for criminal investigators. So my overall argument that was, supporters claim that mugshots online helps show more transparency of the agency and provides more information for community. But is that the rhetoric that's being extolled through these sites? And then my argument is, by looking at the program, I argue that through this exigency of entertainment on these through participation, Mugshots kind of called into being a group of digital entities and that were weaponizing visibility. So the way that I came to that, again, is I did the summary of the site, and then I looked at the people that were being chosen. So the site, there was ways that you could, kind of look at different crimes, but essentially you couldn't interact really with those. It's not like you could report somebody or see that. So in general, it wasn't designed to facilitate crime. It was made for kind of like an entertainment voting kind of system. And then the interesting thing that were the categories, the people that were being voted on weren't necessarily the more visible criminals, or the people that were being arrested and voted for were the kind of had lower level issues like failure to pay fines or fees, or kind of more what you might consider petty things. But if you did look at the general trend at the way the people looked, if looking at a sample of 285 mugshots, 182 to 184, depending on what coder looked at it, saw that they were what could be considered an attractive female, or then second runner-up was way farther down, but the kind of an alphabetical order, the main people that came up were disheveled females or disheveled males, somebody with a face, maybe a strange facial expression, or somebody with a crazy hairstyle, someone with an injury, someone with a funny name, or some type of other visual that was striking, or had a pose that might be considered humorous. Or like these large face tattoos, or some tattoo all over their body. There was a category of unknowns, but basically, for the most part, the most popular, I guess, or most visible person was the attractive female. So the conclusion was, the site doesn't necessarily lead the audience to a careful analysis of a crime where possible subjects can be identified. And then the most attractive arrestees were the ones that ended up being most visible. So my conclusion is with that online mugshots can be a form of digital vigilantism, because these interactive platforms, kind of call into being. They ask people to interact and get people to target particular people for these weaponized, either being intense, unwanted, and enduring visibility. A characteristic of digital vigilantism that Trottier talks about in his article in 2017. So if we're going to consider that to be a digital vigilantism, that this group of people can target individuals and kind of elevate their visibility to do harm to them, it does kind of have some implications. And one is that, a mugshot viewer is typically viewed as somebody who kind of is a passive viewer that kind of watches at a distance. But becoming a digital vigilante involves, like actively participating or being involved. And as a viewer, you're not really, elevating the status of someone, you're just kind of passively viewing it. But as a digital vigilante, you are able to weaponize visibility. The more likes that someone got, the more visible their photo became. It also raises questions of, the motivations, though, of those that are being digital vigilantes. Are they're not necessarily justice seeking? In this case, there's more of an entertainment as exigency. People wanted to involve themselves maybe for fun. I don't know. I wasn't able to, but there's a game version, a game basis for this exigency. And it also questions motive too, because to be a digital vigilante, do you have to come thinking that you're going to be shaming someone, or is this kind of like a creep of the technology that you're using? It starts in the name of justice and more eyes on crime, but it ends up as an entertainment that disproportionately shames and targets certain groups. It also brings a public-private connection. A vigilante isn't necessarily, is oftentimes just someone that exercise or does their work outside of law enforcement. So, and then there's also a private public connection. So, but those are the connections I came to. I thought this was overall an interesting case of what could be considered digital vigilantism that doesn't necessarily be motivated by the same, I guess, exigency that other spaces have been. So anyway, thank you for listening. Well, I guess I guess when I think of constitutive rhetoric, I think of, you know, in this case, like what is calling people into being, like why are certain people like gravitating towards the language, like what is inciting them to join to become a digital vigilante, I guess you could think of. And I think that people recognize themselves in the discourse and the language and the symbols of thinking like, you know what, this is something I want to engage in. You know, I guess I'm just thinking back at like when it's entertainment, you know, the people aren't necessarily engaging as to be vigilantes. They're hearing this call of maybe participating in something. I want to vote for these people, but somehow they're also still engaging in it. So they're seeing themselves, and they be kind of call into, I guess, certain actions and words call into being a certain group of people to do certain acts. And I guess I'm just interested in how, like, the rhetoric that calls people into being, and what it is that makes someone join instead of just passively sitting by. So I think that's one thing that my chapter left me, like, why are we joining, and how are groups calling into being, or words and action, words and posts and social media calling into being a group of people that may not have been together before to do certain things. So